How about now? Can you guys hear me now? Just let me know in the chat. Oh, gracious goodness. Okay. Well, then everything I just said was for naught other than to practice, I suppose. Um, we're going to allow people to come in and hopefully others will join, but we have sent out the Zoom code and we are not live streaming. So I just want to let everyone know that we are recording and we're here today to talk about past lives, integration, psychedelic experience, and honoring our past lives. And I was going to share that I had come from a background of thinking that perhaps I was misgendering myself or something like that because I had a lot of masculine characteristics or received feedback that folks found me very masculine in my behavior or how I conducted myself. And I think a lot of that came down for me to a place of feeling like that my most recent life was that of a man, and that I really feel like I still had that energy of a masculine lifetime. And so that was where I was coming from, was that it wasn't that I was misgendered. It's that sometimes I think we're not completely done with that past life or past lives that we still are carrying with us. So I was going to wait a few more moments before doing a prayer to open up. Let me just we've had a couple of issues with our technological stuff. So why don't I go ahead and open it up to others, and I'll get going with the prayer. And then, Terrence, what I might ask you to do is, if you're able to let other people in, if you see someone else try to come in. But I'll go ahead and start with a prayer. So my prayer for today, and Wolfie is here. Wolfie, come here. Come here, little sweet Wolfie. Wolfie's here. Wolfie's here to get with his little sweet tongue hanging out to kind of bless us with a little some animal energy, to say thank you to the spirits of this land and the earth and Hashem, or whatever God you pray to, but that we're so grateful to be in a spirit of reverence for our past lives and their meaning and their significance in this world, and to understand that these worlds extend beyond this one, whether you believe in multiverses, whether you believe in the simulation theory, whatever your belief is, but that you understand that we are here together to remember. And sometimes some of us have memories that are very special and very sensitive, and they may feel like they drifted away from us quite early in our childhood, but we may have memories of past lives that are very significant. And so today is a day of honoring those past lives. So, you may have experienced being a different race, a different religion, a different political affiliation, a different gender, a different sexuality than the one that you are embodying in this life. And we would just ask that this is finally a place to kind of honor all of those lives, that we see people beyond this one vehicle that their soul inhabits, and we see them as something beyond. So that's the blessing for today. Thank you for being here. And Terrence, I'm not sure if you want to start out with sharing your story. I know that you feel strongly about some of your experiences with past lives. So, I could go ahead and jump into some of my earliest experiences of having a past life. Hold on, we have Harry Smith, Will Smith's brother, that's supposed to join us. So I'll just go ahead and start. Entheo Society is a great place for me as a political activist to do fun stuff. And so we often do stuff on this platform that people haven't heard of before. We did a 24-hour event on conflict within the plant medicine psychedelic community, because there wasn't a lot of place to talk about conflict in the community and how people handled conflict, or how people handled being canceled or things like that. So Entheo Society, as opposed to my political work, is really a place where it allows me the freedom to share, whether it's diversity, whether it's racial perspective, whether it's sexual perspective or gender perspective. Entheo Society is a place where I get to be kind of artistic and fun, but we are actually looking to do a conservative event, so it's not always um, uh, it's not always someone who is a liberal that we are upholding. We just try to show as much diversity as possible, and so we really try to get everyone together in the community. So whether it's the conservative or the eclectic weirdo, or we had a 24-hour event on a 24-hour event on Jewish voices in the psychedelic movement. So it's really a place for, I would say, diversity, even conservative diversity, just everyone. But Entheo Society is a more creative place. And so on this platform, this is where we're able to delve into different and interesting topics. So I'll start off with talking a little bit about when I was young, maybe like 2 years old, 3 years old, I remember coming into a place of consciousness. I'm not sure how young other people might relate to in terms of their age. But at that point, around 2 or 3, I felt like I became conscious of being someone and aware that this is who I was. So whether my consciousness flew into this body that was already there and I was an alien and took over a body, like, I don't know. But at 2 or 3, I recall coming into a place of consciousness and feeling like I know who I am. I've met this person before. It was a feeling of familiarity. And it sounds like Terrence is saying in the chat that this has happened to him as well. And so I'm not sure if others can relate to that a key moment in your early childhood you can recall as being important because it's the first time you remember being you. It's the first time you remember perhaps a sense of familiarity, as if you're coming back into like your little spaceship. And for those that are into the simulation theory, Rizwan Virk is a great person to follow, but he talks about how we like plug in every night, kind of like an iPhone, and we get up every day, and he believes that we're in a simulation. But even if you don't believe that, within that concept of different multiverses, if you will, there is the capacity to understand the human soul as something that is beyond the physical experience, that maybe matter as we know it doesn't really exist if you look at the size of atomic particles and things like that. And so when I was 2 or 3, I remember this experience, but I also had a very unique experience, and I don't know if it's a unique experience to me. I've heard about this in some African traditions in terms of memory. I felt like what I remembered at that time was a sense that I needed to not forget something important. I felt like there was something important from like another lifetime or the spaceship that my consciousness had just crawled out of. Maybe I was supposed to meet up with the mothership. I don't know. But there was something very vital and important that I was not supposed to forget. And so around 2 years old is when or 3 years old is when I remember not only that my consciousness was clear to me and I remembered her or him or it or whatever, and I felt a sense of familiarity of who I was, right? It was bigger than this body of this toddler. There was something that I was that I was also supposed to remember. And for the life of me, I don't know what it is that I was supposed to remember. Interesting. So Terrence is sharing that around the age of 4, as he was coming out of a trance state, he remembers something similar. So later on in my adulthood, I found this African tradition that I found fascinating, where the elders, the grandmas and the grandpas, were particularly set up to help the little children remember something that they were supposed to pass on to the elders before they crossed over into the spirit world. It's very fascinating to me because when I heard these stories of these African traditions of the grandmas and the grandpas needing to get some vital information from these youngsters who, as soon as they could talk, could relay this important information to the elders before they crossed over, that there was like a cycle of communication between the spirit world or past lives or whatever, that needed to be conveyed, and that they had kind of like a system within this African culture to honor that the messages that needed to be relayed that are somehow lost in the ether as we cross over or as we die and come back. So I found, death fascinating. Even as a young child, I was very fascinated by death. And so I've had a couple of experiences throughout my life of feeling like I distinctly feel like, yes, I had a past life experience, like more than one. One was in Mexico, and I had taken a microdose, and I had a flashback to being like a priest that worked with like the royal people of the it wasn't the Incas, but whoever was down there in Mexico near Mexico City. And I think there's some mystery around who built those pyramids and so forth. Um, but what I found interesting is if you go out into this world where right now we are a very racially polarized society, right? So we might say to someone, well, you're white, or you're a man, or you're a woman, or you're black, or you're Asian, and we might not honor the other religions or the other genders or the other races, other, political affiliations that person may have been, because our view of our lives is so like slim. It's so specific to just what is in front of us, right? We only visually allow ourselves to understand what is like right in front of us. So yeah, I had this experience in Mexico. I really felt like it was true for me, and I felt like psychedelics in that capacity, even a microdose, was allowing me to tap into this other lifetime, right? And it wasn't scary to me, and I found it comforting. And I often had this experience as I traveled. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the idea of Harry Potter, but within Harry Potter, the novels, there's a Voldemort splits his soul, I think, into like 5 or 6 pieces, maybe 7, but I think it's like 6. And he hides pieces of his soul, if you will, in different, like, special places that are like secret spots. And the whole premise was that by splitting his soul, he was able to then retrieve it later, because if one person found one piece, it wouldn't destroy all of him, right? And as I traveled as an adult, there's a field of astrology that has to do with finding like areas that like ley lines that are in the earth that are powerful points on the earth that really represent like energetic spots. So if you look at these astro maps or whatever, you'll find like, oh, if I move to Paris, my career will take off. And if I move to Africa, my romance life will take off, or, that kind of stuff. And I felt like as I traveled that my experience was I felt like I was picking up remnants of things from past lives that energetically I felt like I had left behind. So maybe I had been like a traveling soothsayer or like a witch or a priestess or something. But in my past lives, I felt like I had left energetically some, bits of my, not soul, but my toolkit in different areas of the earth. And so as I traveled to very pivotal spiritual spots, like the Taj Mahal, or the pyramids of Egypt, or like wherever I traveled, like I'm trying to Machu Picchu, like as I went to these spots, I felt like I was recuperating things that I had like lost or set aside somehow. And I was like filling my toolkit with these energetic tools, if you will. So I never really talked about it that much with anyone. Um, and I really just, enjoyed having the capacity to learn. welcome, Harry. I was talking about going to Mexico and finding kind of a past life through an experience there through microdosing. Um, but I was just wondering if you felt like sharing. We had just started to dig into what does it mean to have a past life experience and integrate it into our psychedelic experiences.
Oh goodness. This is saying I can't start my video, but so so hi everybody. Um I think for me, um my past life experiences happen more in ayahuasca, um, and not so much um in ibogaine or MDMA or um 5-MeO. I think in Aya it took me back and showed me what felt like it may have been thousands of generations ago for me. And in particular, um, there was one instance where um, I was asking mother about putting down my sword as a warrior, and she showed me a long line of fierce warriors, like these Nordic, like with the big sharp helmets, and they were like, 12 feet tall. And you know how when you put a reflection of a mirror in a mirror and it just goes on for eternity? She showed me that, oh, it's giving me chills. She showed me that, and that I came from a long line of warriors, and that I should not feel like I needed to not be a warrior for what society might deem is appropriate. That it's an honor to be a warrior, and it's an honor to fight for your survival and your spiritual freedom, and it's an honor to sacrifice yourself in every way that you could possibly imagine, and it's an honor to um, have the worst bone breaking pain inflicted upon you to try to free yourself from basically the matrix, basically. So I think, and I've had past life experiences in other forms of um, I'll call it therapeutic forms of investigation, but I think the idea that we are afraid of what we don't know and afraid to experience those things that our brains might not be able to handle. And then for me, it was taking on the responsibility of being a God being and what that required me to relinquish. So I do believe that there are existences, and that's before we start getting into multidimensional or different frequencies and 12th dimension, 8th dimension, 15th dimension, 40 dimensional light beings. Um, but I guess I've seen a lot and have learned things about myself and my existence that I never could imagine existed. Somebody, so Shams looks like they're trying to enter. Should I just admit whoever? Oop,
Yeah, yeah. Unless they're a
it looks like they're in already.
okay, but unless there's someone that's going to create problems, you know what I mean? Um,
I wouldn't be able to make that determination.
no, I know. I'll take care of that.
Okay,
So can I ask a question though?
sure.
So before you hopped on, I was talking about how I was like two or three when I had a sense of myself, like as a soul. Like I don't
Hmm.
know
Hmm.
if you remember what age you were when you like first kind of came into a sense of who you are as like a soul, like not a body,
Hmm. Hmm.
but a soul. So, and it felt
Yeah.
familiar. It felt familiar to me. And it felt like familiar to me, almost like sometimes people believe that you're like an alien and the mothership dropped you off and you just,
Hmm. Hmm.
so I didn't remember being a baby, right? But I felt like I was inhabiting this 2 or 3 year old, and the soul felt familiar to me, like I had met her or him before. It was like beyond gender, beyond anything. And I was like reunited with myself and remembering myself, like, oh yeah, here you are, buddy. But then I also felt like there was this intense feeling of don't forget something. And
Yep.
before you hopped on, I was talking about this African tradition that always resonated with me as an adult, that talked about some African culture that had this tradition of the elders being connected with the little children as they're becoming verbal, because they
Hmm.
had a belief system that these children were going to relay something very important to the elders before they crossed over. And it was like this cycle of death and dying and the spirit world, and somehow the little babies were connected to the elders because they had something that they needed to relay right before they got caught up in this world that's crazy.
Yeah. So I think for me, I don't think I ever connected it to a higher power, like a greater existence. But I was probably 3 or 4 when I realized I was a powerful sovereign being that wasn't like the other people around me. And I think maybe I looked at it as having gifts and understanding that I um, felt like a sovereign being, like I had a power inside of me, and that I did not have to consider anybody else to be me. And I didn't require anybody else to be in my power. And I also remember I was probably 5 or 6 when I actually relinquished that power, which sucked. But my dad was abusive. He was an alcoholic. And I think there was probably some trauma that happened early that um, what I would even call systematically was designed to disconnect me from my individuality and my independence and that light power in me. And then I spent the next 50 years trying to get it back.
That's fascinating, because sometimes I believe there's like a demonic force or something that wants to target like psychic children and split them with like split their souls with sexual abuse, because I see so many psychic children that seem to be targeted in early childhood. And I
Mhm.
see so few of them kind of like make their way back to like taking the fractured soul and putting it back together. But it sounds like what you're saying is your experience was like almost like you're an alien. Like, did you ever see Witch Mountain?
Yeah, that's one of
Like,
my favorite movies when I was,
oh my
yeah.
God, me too. So I always thought maybe like I'm part of like, because it just sounds like your experiences. And how do you own that without sounding like a narcissist? But like, let's just entertain, because I want this to be a respectful place where we honor all experiences. Let's just entertain the idea that you are special, you are different. And what is it like? Why are you different? Because you were a twin. But why
Mhm.
are you like, did you ask yourself why when you knew this about yourself, when you knew that you were different and you were special and you were different from everyone else around you?
So let me say it this way. So I generally don't speak in terms of good and evil. I generally don't speak in try not to speak in terms at least of like good and bad or right or wrong. I try to speak in terms of um, like productive towards the experience you want to have or not productive towards the experience you want to have. And then, people can label it themselves. But I believe everybody is special. I believe everybody has that power and light in them. I think everybody are beings created to be extraordinary. So the world attacks everybody, I believe, maybe not equally, but as fiercely. And there are people who are more sensitive to the attacks, and there's certain attacks that work on certain beings that don't work on other beings. So I think I think universally there are um, powers that consistently and continually and continuously look to um, demote us or to strip us of our power and our light, whether it be through confusion or, it's usually some kind of uh, attack mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, or all of the above. And I think, although I was never really physically abused, I wasn't sexually abused, I was never abused in those ways, but the psychological abuse was devastating. So my particular cup of tea is psychological, where some people you like it's physical, or some people it's sexual. Like some so my particular weakness was attacking my heart and attacking my love. And I think that everybody has their whatever their kryptonite is. We all and our kryptonites are different. So if we were Christians, we would call it the devil, right? So if we were Buddhists, we it'd be karma. So there's all of these, I don't want to get into those labels, but I do think that the idea that we all have power, that there's some force that doesn't want us to have or keep, that is designed for some reason to weaken us in whatever ways, so it's drugs, it's sex, it's money, it's alcohol, like there's it's porn, like it's work, it's Netflix, like there's all of these things that have been designed to, as far as I can tell today, is just to take our focus. How, every religion basically says be nice. Every religion basically says be aware. Every religion basically says treat others as you would want to be treated. And I think these are all kind of ideas about caring for yourself in a way where your vision is not blurred. Um, I think I think I think it was Jesus who said the worst sin of all is to obscure your vision. Because once your vision is obscured, hell, like you're off the road. So I think in my my experiences with plant medicines and what I am trying to, or what the medicines are designed to help you try to do, is to understand what is real. And I don't believe there's really such thing as like my truth or your truth or their truth or how I look at this or how I think um there is a universal, many universal truths, but there's innumerable lies, right? There are lies that will work on me that might not work on you. So again, it's the seven deadly sins. There's examples, wise men and women have tried to tell us, since the beginning of time, what to watch out for. And we don't seem to appreciate or want to. I think Doc Z is raising his hand.
Okay. Um, we will unmute Doc Z. Hold on here.
But that's my long-winded way of saying, I think we're all special. I think we all have power, and I think we all have particular kryptonites. Um, and you know, I'm singularly focused in my life today. I have come to believe that love is the most powerful thing. So I have to make sure my heart is open, and I believe truth is a requirement for me to sit in my love. So no lying, no cheating, no stealing, no manipulation. And if I can just focus on those things, I don't have to watch the millions of other things that are out there. If I can be honest, if I can be focused, if I can be um, forthright in my dealings, then that will, and obviously do everything with an open and loving heart, then that will take me a long way of, towards not falling back into some of these traps that I've fallen into for years and years and years and years.
But in a truly enlightened psychedelic society, if I saw each person as like a body that's like the car they're driving, but their soul has lived multiple lifetimes. Maybe they've been Chinese, maybe they've been Eastern European, maybe they've been gay, maybe they've been disabled. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we get so caught up in division of like, I'm pro-Israel and I'm, anti-Israel, or, you know what I mean? I'm black, I'm white, like all these different kind of labels. And I just wonder what happens if we not that we don't honor the experience that people have had in this lifetime with these like genetic lines and stuff, but can we see someone like my friend Shamel? She has an obsession with um, European movies, right? And you could see it as
Uh-huh.
someone who's like, why does she, like, she's from Guyana, why does she have an obsession with like British aristocracy? But she believes in a past life she was in the aristocracy at some point, or you know what I mean? It's like something that's very close to her, like she feels like it's like family. And
Yep.
I've never shamed her and been like, well, that's messed up, you should be watching like Guyanese things or something. Like
Hmm.
she connects, like this is like she's like beyond obsessed, and I don't even want to use the word obsessed, right?
Right.
And so and in one of my
Maybe she's not obsessed. Maybe she's in her lane. Maybe she found her power. Maybe she got lucky and fell into her purpose. And that's not it. That's nothing that you, I, or anybody else needs to understand. We just need to see it and recognize what it is and support it. And I think the trap is this is how, like, I'm bi, I'm straight, I'm black, I'm tall, I'm rich, I'm poor. Like all of that is the setup. All if it's a label, it's a setup. So even the idea of truth, true and false, you have to be careful of because it's a setup. So
I
for
have
me,
a question.
I'm sorry, yeah.
To Leo, maybe obsessed in a good way is in love.
Hmm.
No, no, no. I'm saying I want to honor her experience, but I also I have a feeling in a past life that I was a gay black man, right? Because I really connect with like how gay black men, certain types of gay black men, like flamer types, really it like there's something about it seems very familiar to me. And so when people tell me that I'm masculine or that maybe I'm bisexual or maybe I'm like misgendered, I'm always like, no, I don't think that's it. I think it's something else. But I do agree with Harry that I don't like labels, right? I find that labels kind of push us apart from one another. And yet at the same time, I feel like it's hard when we have these packages to say, oh, I connect with gay black men for whatever reason, right? Like it just seems very familiar to me. I just feel like I'm at home or something. It's just,
But I was just responding to you saying that it seems that she's even more than obsessed, and you don't want to use the word obsessed. So I suggested maybe she's to use the term in love with that culture that she's
Hmm.
um that's just it's really kind of a type of obsession. It just has a positive connotation.
yeah. Well, I follow this Asian influencer on TikTok, and she's obsessed with Britney Spears. And I just feel like we sometimes live in such a woke culture that we just won't acknowledge, like, maybe this Asian lady really has this very special connection with Britney Spears. It's like I feel like we need to like see that some people are able to transcend, I don't know, the box they've been put into, and they really connect with someone else. And I wanted to relate it to our past lives. I don't know if you believe in reincarnation in any way, Doxy. I know that you're Jewish. But
That yeah, but there's a long-standing Talmudic tradition of um of believing in and talking about souls, and
Hmm.
and so being Jewish would certainly not be a deterrent. In fact, it would be something that encourages me to believe in reincarnation. it's certainly a body of knowledge that I would have to draw on, including a lot of very smart people that have written about reincarnation in Judaism.
But how are we as the psychedelic community talking about reincarnation or allowing each other to acknowledge our past lives? Because some of us may have trauma from our past lives or have unresolved like business. Like sometimes you feel like you need to travel to a certain area on Earth. And you may feel like there's something like kind of like how Voldemort had split up his soul in different places and hid it around the world. You know what I mean? Maybe sometimes we're going back and kind of retrieving like maybe energy from like a ley line or a spot that we don't know why we have a connection, but maybe in a past life we were in Machu Picchu or in Mexico City. You know what I mean? Before it was Mexico City. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone else feels like sharing a past life experience, like a memory or a dream, even a prophetic dream.
I really want to give you the scientific answer, but I'm just afraid to forget what I originally raised my hand for. Um, so I'm gonna say that, and then because Harry was speaking about um, this uh, um, this some kind of contrivance that's trying to snuff out our light, right? Did I get you correctly, Harry?
Trying to make us forget that we have light
Okay.
or that we are light. Yes.
Right, I was particularly I raised my hand because because you repeatedly used uh the language of oh, this is something designed. This is something um that is eh,
I resonated with that, but he kind of
that is
pulled.
adversarial to us in a way that is there's a like a some kind of sentient intentional adversary on the other
Hmm.
side, right? And
Hmm.
that's what I wanted to respond to. Um, uh, and it's and I being a scientist that has studied um, a, a lot of years with uh, uh, professors of ethology, the study of animal behavior, and my PhD is in computational entomology, which is, a very specific subpart um, uh, of ethology, right? Because insects are animals, and uh, um, parts of insect behavior is part of animal behavior. Um, there's uh, uh, there's and Harry, I promise you that in a very short while, this is going to connect. This is going to loop back to what this has to do with what you said.
Okay.
But there's just a little scientific preliminary here. Um, uh, um, E.O. Wilson, which was a very um, well-known and respected uh, uh, ethologist, um, uh, ranked the different strata, the different levels of sociality in the animal world, and that includes humans. Well, no, no. It's the first level is solitary, um, uh, and the second level is gregarious. Okay, so if you think about how grasshoppers become locusts, it
Hmm.
really hinges on
Hmm.
them going from being solitary to being gregarious. And uh, um, uh, one of the entomologists at Tel Aviv University taught me that a grasshopper, when it sees another grasshopper, it hops away from it, while a locust, when it sees another locust, will fly towards it. And that's the only difference that takes them from being solitary to gregarious. And it's a really good example that leads us to understand these two stratas of socialization. Um, my wife just walked in, so I'm going to say this and then jump off. I have to um, give her attention. Um, uh, Then after that, there's social. According to E.O. Wilson's definitions, there's social, where different individuals play a role that serves the nest or the burrow or the hive, right? Um, they play a specific role. And then there's eusocial, and eusocial also has roles, but it gets the terminology eusocial because some of the role players have relinquished their right to um, uh, procreate in order to play their role. For example, think about uh, the protector termites, right? In a termite mound, they don't mate because of the way their body is shaped. They can't, and still, evolution has favored that form. You know, they still exist. They've been around for, well, I don't know, 45 million years. Um, and then human society doesn't really fit into any of these. It's got its own category, which is human eusocial. Um, and because we can be solitary, we have the um, we have we're equipped to be able to live on our own. We just don't want to. Um, uh, we don't feel comfortable, you know, completely isolated. Most people don't. Now, that's where this loops back into what you were saying, Harry. You see, the um, the human animal, as an animal, it wants to be part of a bigger thing, which is society. We want to play a role. We want to play a role. Um, uh, but in order to do that, we have to relinquish a part of our individuality, which which feels painful. Um, uh, it, it- you know, um, unless are you are overabundant in something, giving it hurts more than taking, right? And it and and
Yes.
uh and so we are torn, I think, in between. I mean, I'd say this as pitching the scientific slant to what you said
Mhm.
is that force that is contriving to just for us to just shut up and do our part is it's simply the other members of society that want to, when they're thinking about themselves, they're thinking about their individuality, but when they're thinking about us, they just want to pigeonhole us in our role, and we do the same. You know, every one of us
Mhm.
will. Yeah, and I wish I could expand on this, but I don't want to take up too much time for others, and my wife is here, so I have
Hey,
to.
beautiful. Did you get a haircut? It
Yeah,
looks so beautiful.
Okay, Doc C, do you mind muting yourself or we can mute you?
I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
All right.
Thank you, Doc, for that, and I look forward to following up. And I feel what you're saying,
Whites, I
100%.
love
And
the
that thing of
whites.
identifying
Thank
The cover
as an attack
nectar.
is just
Good.
normal.
You got Ricola. Good.
Sorry, it was the background noise was from
Yeah,
Shamsi. I had asked Shamsi to speak, but I think she has
I'm
some
sorry.
background noise going on. So does anyone else want to share about a past life experience in terms of psychedelics? Because I just don't even feel like we have the language in our culture to talk about past lives and have them be honored. I feel like we're often dismissive. Like we always say, like if someone says they were a Native American in the past life, and I mean, I have Native American friends that often josh and will say, well, of course they're like Pocahontas, right? Of course it's someone that is, like a famous Native American. It's never like an obscure little Native American, right? Um, and then the other thing I was going to share is I just think like I just think sometimes we just get so caught up that we can't understand that people may have lived, many, many lives, and that they've had many different like vehicles that they've been in. And I think if we could see the soul as universal, as something that surpasses time and space. I mean, it really kind of comes down to what is your belief in the human soul. But if we see people as human souls, I feel like that's like true enlightenment, to just fully see people as multi-complex souls that can, pass through many lifetimes. Mihai, I'm not sure if I am pronouncing your name correctly. It looks like your hand is up. I'm going to unmute you. You should be able to speak. No, it looks like that was someone that was, sometimes we get folks in that are trying to create some chaos. So anyway, I could share a little bit more about my experiences with feeling past lives come up, but Harry, is there anything related to a past life that you can speak to, that you remember, that you actually remember from a past life, and that you feel comfortable sharing in terms of anything that has come up for you in a journey, like something that you didn't realize was a past life, or maybe after you started doing plant medicine, did you start to feel like you were remembering something that wasn't like a childhood memory, that was something that was, to go into a past life seems even more like recessive memories.
What was that for me?
Yeah, I was asking if from your
No, I heard you. Yes. Um, so um maybe I haven't sort of identified it as past life, but I have deja vu a lot. And always have. I have deja vu all the time. And um I think more than maybe past lives, although I've had a lot of past life stuff, I think I see a lot of parallel universe stuff. Like, whoa, like, okay. Like I'm looking at it from the opposite side. Oh, I've been here before. Like I've literally seen this before. I know what's going to happen. Like this is, and I think what I have depended on in my business, and I just credit God with it, is to be able to see things done. So when I look at things, I don't want to overstate, like, I don't really see the future, but it's like I know what something will be when it's finished. So I'm then able to reverse engineer things instead of trying to figure out what the next steps are.
So, did you ever watch the TV show Lost?
A little bit of it, yes.
It's really fascinating because it deals with time and
Yeah.
and the concept of time and parallel universes and stuff. So what I hear you saying is that you have a deep resonance with something that resonates as truth. So you can see different maybe timelines simultaneously, or see different ways that different things may have worked out, but somehow you understand it intuitively. And
Yeah,
then
unless it's picking a girlfriend, which I suck at. But other
right,
than
right. You're clearly
that,
clearly
I wish
person.
I could use it for my relationships, but I haven't been successful.
Right. In every other area.
Every other, right.
But somehow you're able to intuitively reverse engineer, like you're able to grasp the central concept of how something arrived, which is why it reminds me of the TV show Lost. Because in the TV show Lost, they would know that there was like a final conclusion like 30 years ahead, but they wouldn't know how they got there, but they would know that they arrived at that conclusion in 30 years. So they would know that they needed to kind of go in that direction when they went
Yes.
when they
Yep.
went back. So
Yep.
that's how I see you operating, is you're operating from, like, we don't even have the words for it, but you're operating from an intuitive, not psychic, but like you can resonate with a truth from like a parallel universe, like a glimpse of a parallel universe of seeing yourself or an objective. You have seen an objective that's been actualized.
So much so that it's shocking to me that other people can't see it.
Dude, I
I'm
get
like,
it.
you don't see that right there? Like,
Yeah,
look at
I get
that.
it.
Like, look at
I
that.
get it.
You don't see that bus
Yeah,
coming
I
down the
think,
street?
yeah, I attribute it to you being a magi. Like, I have full belief these magi people are just like gifted, but I myself don't have that gift, but I can see how you have that gift.
Yeah. No,
So, but
it's
also, don't
crazy.
you feel like there's a certain responsibility? Like, it may feel narcissistic if you own that, because not only will people think you're weird and not understand you, but then also, like, sometimes people are unnerved by people that have like esoteric qualities to them.
Yeah, I think in my case, and I'll probably um attribute it some to my ego. Um, like believing I know what's best is different than being able to see what I believe the right path is. So me seeing what the right path is and what I think you should do is different from me trying to convince you that what I see is the best for you. That's a huge difference. And I think what I've been able to manage over the last several years is not being emotionally attached to people listening to what I think and feel.
That's beautiful because for me, that's true freedom.
Yeah, it's like no, you can see it like a mile away. Like I'm like, hey, don't you go over there? And they go over there, and it's like it happens how I said it's going to happen, and then you hug them when they come back, and say let's try this again. But I think what has gotten into um been problematic for me is not just being able to see, but demanding that other people see what I see too.
No, I think sometimes the lonely healer role, which maybe you don't have a choice, maybe it's just been allotted to you, is that you may be on the mountaintop by yourself and screaming into the wind, and people may follow you, they may not, but you have to be happy with yourself.
Yes.
But you mentioned deja vu, and for me, deja vu is I feel like before we're born that we get like a flash of our lives, like a lightning bolt across the sky, like very quick, and then we forget it as we are on this earth.
Hmm.
But that sometimes I feel like deja vu for me is like a hint that I'm going in the right direction because it'll be like a little note of like God or whatever saying, yes, you're on the right path because it's familiar. But if I don't get deja vu for a while, I feel like you should get in your car and put it in reverse and go back to like the last place you had deja vu,
Hmm.
because for me, synchronicity and deja vu are like God or the universe's way of saying, like, yes, like this, like underlining something.
Right.
Is there anyone else that wants to share a past life experience? Just wanting to make sure you're not a scammer. So feel free to introduce yourself in the chat so we have a sense that you're not a scammer. But Harry, I know that you don't like get off on like the evil stuff, but I actually resonated a lot with what you said about how you felt like people can be under attack. And I know you later prefaced it by saying, well, like everyone can be under attack. But I actually believe that people that have the capacity to change the world, like when you think about what happened to Malcolm X, you know what I mean? I'm just a bit obsessed with Malcolm X, and I just feel like if you look at what happened, like in the Black Power movement, and how Malcolm X was really done wrong, and MLK Jr. by his friends, by people that infiltrated the Black Power movement, and of course, this happens in every movement, but I just feel like Malcolm X was such a profound person and he spoke to class, and it was when MLK Jr. started his march on Washington that was for poor people. It was like when the civil rights movement went beyond race and started to move into class, that's when a lot of these great leaders were taken out. Um,
Can I speak briefly? Malcolm X is one of my favorite people,
oh,
um, and MLK. But you look at JFK, look at Bobby, like everybody during that entire time, right?
Yeah.
So Malcolm X, like all of us, was as much a victim to his kryptonite as all of us are. Martin Luther King Jr., the same thing, so we all have to be aware not of just our gifts. So I have a series that I do with people, um, and there's two major pillars to me helping people navigate their spiritual liberation, if you will. Um, so the first thing is identifying the top 5 things that make you happy. And it's not an aspirational list. It's like, hey, when I'm at the beach, it's just amazing. When I'm in the water, some people it's the desert. When I'm caring for animals, it just I'm there. When I'm, gardening, whatever the thing is, find out what those things are, because those are the things when times get hard that you can go back to um and get your energy and your power and your light back, right? So um for me it's serving. Like anytime I can help, that really charges my batteries, and the desert is a great place for me whenever I get lost. But secondly, and maybe even more importantly, is identifying what your deadly sin is. So you want to figure out what recharges you, but you also want to figure out what sinks your ship. So with Malcolm, he figured out late in the game what actually sunk his ship. But there was probably, and the times were a little different too, maybe not very different. But once he realized what sunk his ship, some damage had already been done that maybe the time or the powers that be or God would not allow reconciled outside of him. So it's really important not just to understand what your gifts and talents are, but to understand what your weaknesses are. You don't have to focus on your gifts and talents. That is like protecting the upside. You don't have to protect the upside. You want to make as much money as you can make. You want to protect the downside so you don't lose the money. So I think we're not taught, and we're not counseled or mentored in a way where we focus on what the great things are, and we're not always aware of what the things are in us that will kill us.
So I'm fascinated by that because I so believe that what you're saying is true. And I always tell folks like a wise man, and I use that just like gender inclusive term, but like a wise man knows his deficits and knows what his Achilles heel is. And I feel like many of us are not taught to recognize and own. It's like we're ashamed of our,
Yeah.
if you can call it faults, but like how boring would the computer simulation be if we were all perfect, you know? So I think it's really important what you're saying to honor that there are, like, you can call them deficits, you can call them challenges, you can call them Achilles heels, but we all have these pieces of us that are kind of like the things that pull us down or bring us to lower levels of vibration or bring us to a fear state, or that are kind of like what make us, like our faults make us unique, just like our gifts, right?
It's the way I try to identify them, so we're not sort of judging what it is. It's like these are the things that stop us or create hurdles for us having the kind of experiences we want to have. So if you're having the experience you want to have, it's great. It's when we are not having the experiences that we're going to have, what do we do about it inside of us? And for me personally, being able to identify those things, 9.5 times out of 10, it's my fault, or it's something in me that's creating it, not what the other person is saying or doing.
So Andrew Bustamante is this ex-CIA guy who's got this huge business on like spy stuff. He's really fascinating. But one thing that I learned from like watching some of his podcasts was like, I think everyone should do like an imaginary file on themselves. Like, let's just say you're a
Uh-huh.
powerful figure in the psychedelic movement. How would I take down if I wanted to infiltrate like Harry Smith?
100%. 100%.
So, but if I'm gonna, even just not knowing you that well and hearing about you today, if I'm doing a file on you, I'm like, this guy is a sucker for helping people. He feels recharged by helping people. We need to send someone his way that's like falling apart. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So just think about this. So as people have done it, like people have files on people, and it's like Jesus might be one of the most famous. They had a file on him, right? And they follow
Really?
him around
They
and
had a file on Jesus.
gather the information. And when the time was right, they struck, right?
Yeah,
So,
Judas like was the infiltrant.
well,
Yeah.
Judas, I mean, first of all, Jesus saw all of that stuff. He knew what was going to happen. So that's, I think,
Totally.
that's part of having the courage to be you. It doesn't matter what the file says. It doesn't matter what you send my way.
Totally.
I'll take what God has for me.
Totally.
If it's in truth and love, I'll take it. And the
Totally.
problem is we don't like it. We don't want to take what we don't want. We don't want to take what we don't like. And where I'm trying to get to is it doesn't matter whether I like it. If it's for me, I'll take it.
I just find that you're perhaps more spiritually enlightened. I'm not trying to kiss your ass, but like than the average person, because I think for myself, I wrestle against those forces where I'm like, oh, I'm going to figure out who that person is that's like trying to infiltrate, or you know what I mean? But I feel like you're on like a whole other level of like Buddhism or just like spirituality where you're just like, that's for me, just like Jesus could see everything that was coming for him. Like you can see it and you're like, that's of God too. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can I tell you a very, very brief story? And
Do
then
it. Do it. We're all about the
so
storytelling.
I was so I really like poker, right? So when I started when I initially had interest in playing poker, I went and took some classes. Like you go to a casino and you sit around a table and there's a teacher, right? So I was asking the teacher about all of these movies, these people are rubbing their nose and scratching their ass and all these tells and like what is, you know, how do you really become a good player looking at other people's tells? So he laughed and he said that's a very common misunderstanding for people who are good at playing poker. Now he said two things that were stick to me to this day. He said one, there aren't people that play poker, they're personalities that play poker. So once you play enough poker, you start seeing the personalities. And when I started, I was like, wow, so there's this personality, that does these things. And there's those personalities that do those things. So once you can identify the personalities, they play the same. It was unbelievable to me. So there are 3 or 4 specific personalities that I saw that when you watch them play, they do the same things. So I'm like, oh, I know what he's about to do because I understand the personality. Oh, I know what she's about to do. I understand the personality. But he went through all of that. And then he said, there's only one person sitting at that table that you need to be worried about. And he said, I'll give you 2 guesses, but you probably only need one. He was like, the main person that's going to sink your ship is you. You don't have to worry about all of that other stuff. You have to worry about you because if you have you under control, you can play better. And if you don't have you under control, you can't play better. So I think, I've been beat up a little bit in my life, but ultimately I've been lucky to find the eternal accountability lies within me. So if I'm not having the experience I want to have, I need to look at me, not her. If I'm not having the experience I want to have, I need to look at him. Need to look at me, not my boss or not my partner or not, the mailman or not the white man. It's like, no, it's me. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't, things that happen in the world that aren't great. But if I have me under control, I can play my game much better than if I don't have me under control. So I try to spend 98% of my time on me. And that's been very helpful because I'm the only one who I can control, at least most of the time.
No, it's interesting you say that because I've dealt lately with kind of like delving into different internet like media personalities and trying to sort out like, oh, if I get this really big interview, like how do I want to be? Like how do I want to present myself? And really kind of coming to terms with the fact that like if you're in a state of panic and you're not doing deep breathing and you're not like in your body and enjoying yourself, like enjoying your life and enjoying this experience, right? If you're always future projecting and thinking like I'll be happy if or whatever,
Mhm.
that then
Mhm.
you're never enjoying any of it and you're never really in any of it. You're never really in the moment. So if you only have control over yourself, like exactly what you're saying, like why not, I don't know, learn to be at peace with yourself, even the parts you don't like.
Yeah. Well, that's the $1 million question. That is the goal of every, in my opinion, the goal of every being is to get back to itself. So as much as we're out here journeying, and the whole goal, of these plant medicines is to get you back to you.
Right, but also like I feel like humor is such a healing energy. That's why I love Judaism because there's just so much humor in it and so much like people not agreeing and just like the energy of like being able to not agree. I just love that part of Judaism. But when I watched Jordan Peterson, right, who's really pro-Israel, when he's like always talking, like if you go on any Jordan Peterson podcast, I don't know if you ever watch him,
Yeah, no,
but
he's one of my favorites.
okay, but he's like really speaking to this demographic of men that I think are feeling really fed up with like woke society and whatever. And I agree with some of what Jordan Peterson talks about, but if you'll notice, Jordan Peterson like always has an opinion. He's never like, "Oh, I'll have to get back to you," or like, "I'll have to think about that," right? He's like Mr. Dispenser for like an opinion on everything. And I don't know that he has much of a sense of humor about himself. And like with Elon Musk, like even though he kind of has some of those same characteristics, like Elon Musk always seems to be kind of laughing at like a personal joke. Like he does seem to have like a little bit of like a cockiness and stuff, but seems to have a sense of humor about himself. And I just think that the wisest people for me are the people that, like you said, can see their deficits or see their whatever, but also people that can laugh at themselves. And like,
Mhm.
I just feel like we have people that take themselves so seriously with like trying to look polished with different things. And I just truly feel like we're in this age of authenticity, and that what's going to be even more beautiful and appealing to people in this kind of new age that we're going into is humbleness
Yes.
with being like a goofball. Do you know what I mean? With being like
Mhm.
maybe you're
Mhm.
autistic or maybe you're kind of like a weirdo, but
Mhm.
how do you like you talked about love being this power that's just beyond anything and truth. Well, then what about the love we can have for our goofiness, right?
Yeah. No, I think that, at least as I have seen it and experienced it, um, everything turned out for me to be about keeping my heart open, because my heart was open. I mean, my heart was closed and I thought it was open. My heart was closed. I thought it was like a light switch. I can have my heart open for you, but not for him. I can have my heart open for my kids, but not this person. And it doesn't seem to work like that. You either have an open heart or you don't. And when you don't, it manifests itself in relationships, even with people who you have a lot of affinity for. So, um, over the last several years, I've gotten down to a couple of fundamental pillars that when I start to go off the rails, I try to go back to those fundamentals. It's like, okay, love and truth, love and honesty. Okay, if I can be in love and be honest, then that gets me, I'll take what I get from that. But as soon as I start getting those little tickles of manipulation or tickles of desire or tickles for lust or tickles for greed or even apathy, like there are all of these things that don't help me be the person I want to be. And I
Well,
think being
I
for,
appreciate, no, I appreciate you saying that because I've harbored, I would say, I don't know, hatred. I don't know, just like
right.
like things that like obsess me. You know, like that 15 minutes before you go to sleep that feels like very like who you think about before you go to sleep. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
That feels very precious, that 15 minutes before sleep. And as I take a shower like every night, I have like this David Bronner soap in my shower, and I still have such like complicated feelings about David, and like did he do me wrong? Did I do him wrong? Like, but it's something I'm giving my whatever, like renting your head out to someone. I'm
Yeah.
doing it like literally every night. I could just throw out this soap, but then I see his soap in the grocery store. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm always just getting triggered. But
Can I give you a small piece of advice?
sure.
Get rid of the soap.
But I see it in the grocery store. It was even in
Yeah,
Hawaii.
but that's just one more. Then
Okay.
go down a different aisle. Like,
Okay, but
don't.
literally, it was in
It's not
Molokai.
doing
We
you
were
any.
just in
It's not doing
Molokai.
you any favors. Like, have the like. It
My
doesn't
point is,
serve
I
you.
actually feel like David is a past life connection. I don't know if you've had past life connections, but I feel like him and Mason Marks, for me, have been these like past life connections. Mason leads a psychedelic center at Harvard. And I just like, I feel like when I make peace with the fact, like you said, if I have love for them, even if I'm angry or even if I'm upset or whatever, but like, if I can have love for them, then I feel like I'm less consumed with, I just don't like what hate does to me or that
Have
anger.
have love for you, and let whatever love you have for you determine how you deal with any and everybody else. Like, just turn. Don't. You don't need to mention
Do you
anybody
ever
else's.
feel, yeah, do you ever feel like there's a healthy place for hate or for anger?
No, no.
Can I
Because
ask you a question? Have
have
you have you found that that has changed since you became a vegan?
so I dealt with anger probably 12 or 13 years ago as one of the first as one of the first things that I needed to identify and overcome that was holding me back from having the experience I wanted to have in my life. So um but anger is a big one. There is no use for hate in the world. There's no good use. There's nothing you can't. I have a friend from Trinidad. She always said you can't plant beans and grow corn. So if you believe that love is the most powerful thing in the world, you can't plant hate and grow love. You can grow anything from love. Love is the ultimate elixir. But um hate has no, in my opinion, hate has no value, no positive value in the world. None. There's nothing good that can come from it.
And then how do you propose loving your like for lack of a better word, like enemies, like people you have unresolved feelings about?
So you gain some you have respect for yourself and you have love for yourself, and then you remove yourself from a situation as much as you can from the person or entity or
But
experience that
what
you're.
about like resolution with people you have conflict with? Is you
You
are
don't
you
need to. No, you don't need to resolve anything with anybody but yourself.
that's
You're the
beautiful.
only you're
That's
the only person who you need to have resolution with.
that's
Everybody
beautiful.
else can go. Everybody, your mother, your father, your siblings, your boss, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, everybody can go but you. And if you can figure that piece out, then you can have everybody. They don't need to go because you're good. But the reason you keep that Dr. Bronner soap on your damn shelf is because you're not caring for yourself in a significant enough way to remove it.
Totally. No, I hear that. I hear that. I hear
Like,
that.
it's like we do it all the time. I do it. Like, it's ridiculous. I just
Well,
when I
no, I
realize
got
it,
this
I try to
message.
address it.
Yeah, I got this message the other day that that was kind of like you're choosing to not forgive yourself for whatever you think went on here. Like this isn't really
100%.
this
Yes.
isn't about him. This is really about you.
Yep. Yep. Now that seems like kind of oversimplified and thanks, but how do I deal with it? Like, great, thank you for, I'm drowning and you're describing the water. Thank you. That's really elevated. But it really starts with identifying it like that and then
Okay.
moving on to how we can.
But if you have past life connections that you seriously know and understand, there are people in this world that you may never resolve things with in this lifetime, but you connect and resonate that they may be a multiple life connection for you, right? That you're popping up in their life and they're popping up in your life. How do you deal with that?
So if somebody is popping up that's creating something, it's not to resolve with them. They're giving you they're putting something on your radar. There's something you need to resolve in you. That's why they're there.
You never believe we're just having lives where in Hinduism they talk about like the soul family, like people that just always are going to pop up in your life.
Yeah, but you're asking a different question. You're saying people pop up, entities pop up, energies pop up all the time. It's the idea that you have something that requires resolution. It doesn't. Nothing.
No. I'm not saying it requires resolution. I'm saying, what do you do when you encounter people, humans that you resonate with and say, oh my God, their energy feels so familiar. I feel like I've dealt with it over multiple lifetimes. I'm probably going to see them in the next lifetime. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I likely look at things a little differently. It's like, hey, if you're going to be a good tenant, if you're going to be a great benefit, I'm going to be more interested in engaging. And if you're a bad tenant and a bad influence, then I'm probably going to be have less sort of intention to engage. But
Yeah.
I'm worried about me. I'm worried about I'm the poker player at the table that I'm worried about.
Right. No, I think you're clearly coming from a place of like boundaries can be good and protection of yourself is critical because you love yourself.
Put your mask on first. That's why they say that. Once your mask gets on, then you can start considering, but I'm not good enough at keeping my own mask on to be out there like that, not for any extended period of time. Like, hey, I need to figure out how to keep my mask on.
No, I feel like I have
And then everybody else has to keep their mask on.
no, I hear you. I hear you.
And then we can potentially create something beautiful together.
No, and I think that's my ultimate is I have a desire to connect with people. It doesn't have to be sexual, but like a desire to deeply connect with people. And I may not put on my mask fully enough because I have such a strong desire to connect with people.
Yes, yes, yes. And anybody who's healthy, who sees your mask is not on, they don't want to connect with you.
Right.
Because they're like, oh shit, I'm sick. I mean, I'm healthy. They're sick. It's like a mask. It's the same thing with, whether you believe your politics or not. Like the reason people wear masks is so I don't get you sick. The reason you should wear a mask is so you don't get me sick.
You
And
know,
that's
it's interesting when you were talking before about knowing our faults. I watch a lot of conservative radio to try to like lead in the
yeah,
political effort and reach conservatives and understand conservatives. And what bothers me about Trump supporters is like I don't see enough of them honoring that he has deficits, right? Like any human. Just
right.
just recognizing. And I think if you believe in anyone, you should understand that they have deficits.
Well,
Um,
that's a whole nother. I don't know if I want to get into Trump or not, but
But
that's a
I mean,
whole
just
that's a whole nother
understanding that,
thing.
like you're saying, Jesus had deficits. You know what I mean? Like that we're
Yes,
understanding.
100%.
I think when we make people perfect, it almost makes them non-human.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we know nobody's perfect, so
well, and I also think how boring it would be if we were perfect.
yeah.
But now I feel like you're saying I'm diseased and that's why people don't want to come near me.
No, we're all diseased. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying you're diseased. I'm saying I'm diseased. I'm saying Steph diseased. I'm saying everybody on the planet is diseased.
as long as we're both diseased in this scenario.
Everybody is diseased, though.
Yeah,
That's like everybody is.
I
So the
appreciate
idea that somebody is not sick is ridiculous. We're all sick, and that's where our compassion should be. That's where our compassion comes from. Because if I know you're sick, I know how it feels because I'm sick too. So when my foot hurts, I'm like, damn, my foot is killing me. And you say your foot hurts, I'm like, I know how that is. I hate when my foot hurts. So I can have some compassion for you and your journey because I know how it is for somebody's foot to hurt because my feet hurt. But the idea that somebody's feet don't hurt is ridiculous. Anyway, so I have to jump.
No,
But
I hear you. We're probably gonna end early. But Harry, as we end, is there anything that you're doing as far as like, I hope you're gonna become a spiritual leader in the psychedelic movement, however you choose to move through that. But are you enjoying being like a plant medicine healer person? Are you just stepping into that more and more? I know you gotta
so
go, but
So I would say that my my life, I have committed my life to helping people navigate and find their peace and love and um, fulfillment, and to figure out how they can create the experience here while we're here in this meat suit. As long as we're here, we want to be able to try to make this as great of experience as we can. So I've committed my life to helping people navigate that, and I believe that ayahuasca is the singular most powerful tool that I have ever experienced in doing that. I think every soul on the planet should do it, um, at least 3 times, and it has been indescribable how it has helped me, and in such a short period of time, the power that it has allowed me to reclaim, and the sovereignty that it has shown me, um, is unlike anything I've ever experienced. So my hope is that my story will, and my counsel or guidance or mentoring or whatever you want to call it, will help people figure out how they can confront some of these things and free themselves of some of these false ideas that are holding them back from finding the love and the happiness and the fulfillment that they're looking for in their lives.
Right on.
But
Thank
I have to run. But thank you,
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, though. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
So we're probably going to end a little bit early today unless someone wanted to share a story about a past life experience. We've had about 7 or 8 people share, and I appreciate people sharing. I appreciate Harry Smith sharing for most of this event about his experiences in his meat suit. I just want to envision a world or a society where we are capable of really seeing people as so much more than just their physical bodies, and that for many of us, our souls have been here over multiple lifetimes. And we were just lucky enough to hear from Harry Smith, Will Smith's brother, for about half an hour here. Reverend, if you wanted to speak real quick, we were going to end early, but if you wanted to share a story about a past life experience or your experience helping folks with past life experiences, just feel free to raise your hand before we end here. Anyone else that wants to share a past life story? I'll go ahead and share one last story before we end, and give people a chance to raise their hand if they have anything else they want to share. So when I was in Mexico with my son, this was like 7 or 8 years ago, we were in Mexico City, and we were at the large pyramids. I forget the name, right outside of Mexico City. And I had microdosed psilocybin, and really had this just very dramatic experience of feeling like I was remembering a past life, of being like a spiritual, like monk or some kind of a man, being a spiritual leader, like a assistant to the big kahuna at the, one of the many assistants, but somehow a spiritual priest of some kind. And it all seemed very familiar to me, and I just really recognized that this was possible, that we do have these past life experiences that we may not always remember or recognize. So I feel like we've had a very robust discussion today, and I just wanted to leave time at the end if anyone else wanted to share before we end. Anyone else that wants to raise their hand or put it in the chat? I can't necessarily see it. But yeah, just wanting to encourage people to speak if they're able. Thankful that Harry Smith has been such a good friend in the movement. He was part of our Black Diaspora event. And just wanting to see if the Reverend wanted to speak. But if she doesn't, then we'll probably end early today. But I just want to thank everyone for a meaningful conversation. And our next event will be in a couple of weeks, and we'll keep you posted. All right. Have a wonderful day, guys. Let's see here. Looks like people sharing in the chat. Thank you so much. Thank you that people benefited from hearing about this event, and thank you for joining today. It's a great discussion to have, and the next one will be even more interesting, I can promise you.